All right, man. So Kyrie is in the news. He and the Nets are at an impasse on his contract extension. My guess is that Kyrie wants as many years and as much money as he can get, and the Nets are like, well, hold on. And whether that is qualifiers through games played or it's just the amount of years is lower, I don't know exactly what it is, but clearly they're not on the same page right now. And we've already gotten some teams attached to the situation, mainly the Clippers, Lakers, and Knicks, based on what Shams has said so far. The biggest thing is the Nets and Kyrie, though, right now, man, to state the obvious. And of course, Kevin Durant and his influence on the whole thing. I mean, if you're the Nets, you're basically saying to yourselves, would we rather have the uncertainty of not just Kyrie and, I mean, what the hell could happen over the next few years, but also his injury stuff, right? Versus what we imagine we could get from everybody else. Now, within that, number one, it's not a guarantee that it would be any of these three teams if Kyrie was actually traded. Number two, are we super duper confident that the Knicks, Clippers, or Lakers would just be like, yeah, we definitely want Kyrie? Like, I know they've been mentioned, but being mentioned versus really in it, those are two different things. For some CBA specifics, if he would accept the player option, then that makes the deal more simple, but then it'd have to be assurance on the other side of it that he's going to get the contract he wants. If he declines his player option, then it would be a sign and trade, but then it gets tougher because if you have too much money on your books, you can't receive a player in a sign and trade, which I think is definitely the case for the Clippers, and it might also be the case for the Lakers. And, I mean, we can do a quick rundown. The Clippers have a lot of good players they can offer the Nets. There's no young star player in there or anything. There's not a boatload of draft picks that could come back to them. In the case of the Lakers, I mean, you'd have to find a third team that would take on Westbrook because I don't think the Nets would want to take on Westbrook. And in that scenario, I'm guessing the Lakers would actually move their distant first round picks to the other team, and then the Nets would get something back between the other team and maybe like Kendrick Nunn or something from the Lakers. You've got the Knicks, who, I don't know, there's some like Evan Fournier, Alec Burks, Derrick Rose, Nerlens Noel. Like there's something in there that kind of resembles the Clippers move where it's like you're getting good players back, but is it anything that you're losing your mind over? Not really. You'd rather have Kyrie Irving healthy and all that stuff, but that's just not a guarantee at this point, right? So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, and that's another thing too, where with Kyrie specifically, it's like if he just dictates or attempts to dictate as much as he can what team he wants to end up on, how much will that matter? I mean, the Nets are still the ones who can actually make the move here. And while all that's happening, they still need to be concerned about Kevin Durant and how he feels about the situation and all that. So basically, this Nets situation continues to be this Nets situation. I don't know. We're going to see Ben Simmons next year. And from the Nets' perspective, I imagine they would prefer to have a Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant thing going into next year. And, well, I don't know. The other thing that could affect all of this, which I basically just alluded to, but just to say, like, I don't think a return for Kyrie would be something that we would typically see out of a star player deal. Like, you remember when Jimmy Butler's stock was about as low as it could have been in Minnesota and they just had to get him out of there? Not saying we're at that point with Kyrie, but I don't think it's a glowing relationship between him and the front office either. The return for Jimmy in that situation was Robert Covington and Dario Saric and nothing else. Okay, that's not true. It was also Jared Bayless and a second round pick. But I would hope that the Nets would get better than that for Kyrie, but I don't think it would be like something amazing either. So again, it comes back to there is a reason for them to want to keep the guy, but it's a complicated situation, man. You can find people on both sides of it, and like, is anybody wrong? I mean, I've seen already, what are the Nets doing? They have to give him the contract because he's their best chance of winning. And I've also seen there's no way you can commit to Kyrie because of his injury stuff and just how unpredictable he is with team relations and whatever else. Also, the potential of making Kevin Durant mad affects all of this as well.